Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Morgan and here we do all things spooky. Now in the month of February, I did something a little different and very fun where I did daily uploads of nothing but stories that you guys have sent in to me. And today is the final day of February and it makes me want to cry because I have had so much fun doing this. But with that being said, I have had so much fun doing this that I decided to make it kind of a normal thing that I do. So here's my upload schedule from here on out until we decide to change it or something else works differently. Monday through Friday will be nothing but stories that you guys have sent in to me. I'm still doing daily uploads. You're still gonna have to deal with me every single day. But Saturday and Sunday, we're gonna alternate things. So this Saturday, or maybe Sunday, one of the days this weekend, I'm gonna be talking about books and movies that I watched and read in the month of February. And the next day, we're gonna be talking about some scary TikToks. So we're gonna be doing stuff like that. We're gonna do deep dives into scary movies. My husband's starting a series on here as well, where it's like a countdown video of different things. We're gonna be doing my personal stories, Appalachian folklore stuff, but that's all gonna be on the weekends, and Monday through Friday is gonna be nothing but your all stories. I'm really excited about that, and if there's any new series ideas that you guys have, please let me know, and we will figure it out together what we want to do. But with that being said, please check out the description below. You will find out where to send your stories and how to do that. You'll also find my other social medias and podcast episodes, so please check all of that out, and without further ado, let's get into the very last month-long episode of Your Scary Stories. This is a bit of a long one and a bit confusing. A lot of these stories trail off with no valid ending, and I apologize. This story has multiple side stories because it's just overall weird things that have happened to me over the course of a week. A little bit of backstory. My mom is rather witchy. She believes in everything paranormal, and she will constantly blame things on the paranormal without seeing things through, or trying to see if there's a genuine reason with logic on why something happens. The thing about me is that I love going on walks, especially late night ones, though because I am on the younger side, my mom tends to not let me go out later at night. This is understandable and I usually don't have a problem with it. Well, one of these nights, instead of going out alone, I knew that my mom would most likely say no to going out on my own. I asked her to come with me. She said she's grateful for the fact that I asked her and she sees it as a good time to have some daughter-mom time. It was terribly cold in Utah that night and the winds were strong. While we were about 5 minutes into the walk, she said that for a certain spell she needs some fresh graveyard dirt. She has weird antics, so I don't question it. We have a graveyard that's somewhat near our house that we go to. Me and Mom walk along the side of the open graveyard and see that there is one new grave. Me and her went up to it and we were rather polite. She says hello and explained that we did not mean any harm, and we introduced ourselves and did the normal things that you do when you're not trying to get possessed by some kind of spirit. After talking, me and her take the dirt and begin our walk home. Next to the graveyard is a trail that goes on for a while. We make it home safely. Though a few days later, my mom tells me that she thinks the jar of dirt was a bad idea. She explains that our grandma says that she's been hearing things and that she herself has been hearing and seeing things and just weird things are happening overall. She explains this while me and friends are over. For safety purposes, I'll call them Lynn and Sin. Both of my friends say that we should visit the grave. Say we're sorry and just try to figure out what's going on. I agree. And so me, Lynn, and Sin walk all over to the graveyard. Sin has an electric longboard, and before going to the graveyard, his longboard is completely charged. Though only 4 minutes after going to the graveyard, his electric longboard completely dies. We find the grave that me and my mom had originally taken the dirt from, though something is weird. The newer graves along the sides. These graves have headstones and flowers. Though if they didn't have headstones, they would have some kind of card sticking out of the ground that tells you all about who this person was, what they looked like, date of birth, date of death, etc. But this graveyard doesn't have anything. It doesn't have a card, no flowers, no headstone. It's just blank. There's nothing left to tell you about the person who might have been there. We pay our respects to it anyway and then head down the trail to the park. We see a figure on the bench near the park, though growing closer to it, it's no longer there. We hear many noises of twigs breaking and whatnot as if something was following. My friends and I, after some time, start to go home because it's getting late. Over this time period, many streetlights are going out overhead and are just flickering and then going out. We were teasing Lynn about a boy she likes and how he's kind of weird. We tap her left foot constantly over the course of our hangout and maybe a street away from our house. She sprains her ankle on her left foot. Before she sprained her ankle, we were walking ahead of her with her somewhat lacking behind. We turn around and when we hear a thud and she's on the floor cradling her ankle, she says she doesn't know what happened. Her parents have to pick her up and me and him continue back to the house. My animals start acting really weird, refusing to go outside and just staring outside. We take him home and notice 2 streetlights flicker and go out as we pass by. I've tried to say to my mom that we need to put the dirt back, but she doesn't know where it went. On a Tuesday morning, randomly, me and my mom's boyfriend are pulling out of the driveway when my sister and mom come rushing out, continuously saying Papa's ashes just got thrown. My family is cleansed, has done cleansing rituals, and it won't go away. Okay, so I'm gonna give my opinion on this. You don't have to follow it. It's literally not said in fact. It's just something about me that I do. And maybe that's because my husband works closely with Hades and I'm really weird around cemeteries. I don't personally take dirt from cemeteries, especially graves. I think if you're collecting cemetery dirt, correct me if I'm wrong for people that do this, you're supposed to collect it like kind of around the fence, right? It's not supposed to be near any graves or anything like that. Because I feel like if you take something like that from a grave, you're essentially just asking for trouble. So I would talk to your mom about that. Just, for the next time she needs cemetery dirt, if she has to have it, just go around the perimeter maybe. Someone in the comments correct me if you collect it, but because I don't collect anything from cemeteries. Also, if you're going to do that, it's good to leave an offering, like a coin or something. You should do that anyways. If you're visiting cemeteries, leave a coin at the gates at least, and just pay your respects, be super respectful. But yeah, that stuff can happen when you're messing with cemetery dirt, so just be careful with that and talk to your mom about all that stuff. All right, next story. You said you wanted the other parts, so here they are. My previous stories were about the vampire in my bedroom and the wolf outside in the backyard. Yes! The upstairs hallway of our house was a hotbed of occurrences. Later on, I found out that the thing in my unused bedroom had a roaming time in the house. I found this out because at 7 p.m. on the dot, I would see an old man at the top of the stairs. It was a 2-story house, who would point back down the stairs while looking in the direction of that room. If I didn't listen to him, he would swing the pictures on the wall until I went downstairs. The man never hurt me, but if I lingered too long upstairs, despite his warnings, I would feel the dark presence of the thing in that room grow suffocating. I learned it had about an hour before it was drawn back into the room, where I would wait at the door to be opened. This was the same hallway where my mother saw the nightlight's light disappear as though consumed one night while I was in college. She said she saw a dark tendril like Black Widow spider legs come crawling into the room one night while she was in the master bedroom alone. My dad was away on a business trip at the time. She couldn't move and could only watch as the tendrils crept further into the room. Then she started to think Psalm 23 as hard as she could, but it didn't work, so she switched to the Lord's Prayer. The tendrils began to retreat as though they were buried. The nightlight's light disappeared. Then there was the kitchen and living room, which didn't have a single wall between them. There was only separated by what flooring was used. There was the ghost of a little boy who liked to play with a coffee maker and set off one of my old toy banks that would say hello and goodbye. He was playful and I never got a bad vibe from him. In fact, he would watch TV with me. We would boo characters on shows together with him using the toy bank as his system of communication. Here's the last part of that haunted house story. Though I have many others from throughout my life I could send you as well if you found this series of stories interesting. Yes. We ended up moving out of the house not too long after, near the end of 2019, and had thought we had left everything behind. We sold the house to flippers and were finishing with moving our stuff out when the thing made its final move. When I was cleaning up my room, now a storage room for some of my things I couldn't fit into the room I used until we moved, the thing would loom over me, and I would feel nothing but cold fear in my stomach the whole time. I would be saying the Lord's Prayer on loop just to keep it from touching me. My mother and I even put salt in front of my closet when I could feel it slink away from me to hide from a prayer. It couldn't bother us after that, but it made my mom violently nauseous in retaliation while I had nightmares for days. After we were completely out, the house was flipped. Trigger warning for unaliving and mentions of CP. The house we moved into later, and then we heard from a neighbor over Facebook that there was real-time police standoff happening in our old house. Apparently the man who moved in was part of a CP ring and had a warrant out for his arrest. Instead of letting himself be taken in, he unalived himself in one of the upstairs bedrooms. That night, my mom and I both had dreams of a spider adding to an already huge web. We were never more glad that we moved out. We suspect it had a penchant for collecting souls, and we were lucky it didn't get ours. That's it for the house stories. Let me know if you would be interested in more of my haunted life stories, and thank you again for reading these. Okay, counterpoint. What if you were experiencing a timeline glitch and that disgusting individual that took his life in that house, that was the dark presence that the other spirit was trying to protect you from? It was just a weird, because time's not like, the way we think it is. It's all over the place. And what if that was the crossover and he was the gross energy? What if? It also could be that something was collecting souls, but I feel like it was some sort of crossover. What do you guys think? All right, next story. I just stumbled across your videos on TikTok and you helped me realize that something odd that happens might have been more of a sinister energy to it. I think I might have a mimic, but I'll give you some background first. I will say that I've watched your content for the last 3 days and truly love you and your videos. Thank you for sharing everything that you share. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I'll start off by saying that my family has always been on the extra sensitive side to detecting and seeing things that we should not see. My great-grandmother and her family used to do things like read tea leaves and other things like that. I've always wanted to know how to do that. That would be so cool. There's also, I think it's bone throwing is so cool to watch. That's the only real story I have about that because it was not talked about much. My grandmother's parents were very strict Seventh-day Adventists who traveled the country in a steep step van to spread the word. I've always seen things and heard things while growing up, but have not had many experiences since my children were born. My best friend and I were tormented by what we thought was a little girl in her house when we were teenagers. We would see and hear things that didn't make sense. One night I saw a little girl in the corner rocking back and forth, and a few days later her family had moved to Florida. Oh yeah, these experiences took place on Long Beach/Oak Island, North Carolina, which is also part of Fort Caswell, about 5 minutes from Southport, which is notorious for hauntings. She and her boyfriend, now husband, and I all had the same dream of blood in her closet and her sister's closet. She was in Florida, I was on the island, and her boyfriend was in the Boiling Springs Lakes, about 13 minutes from me. There was many more experiences, but that was the last one that we all shared. We now live in Myrtle Beach, and when I was pregnant with my son, my husband woke up with what he thought was an elderly lady in his face. I assumed it was my grandmother because she used to come in and stick her face over ours to make sure we were breathing. There was also a set of blinds right beside our toilet that kept falling, so my husband got his power drill and screwed them in place. After this, on 3 occasions, these blinds fell on him while he was in the bathroom, even placing extra screws after they fell. I assumed this was my brother because it always happened when hubby and I were fighting. My brother also loved playing scary pranks on me growing up. But now this is where I think I have a mimic. I've been always seeing shadows more than when I'm alone. I saw them more in this house. I know the owner's mom had passed in here, so I figured it was her. My grandparents and my brother. This is when I started hearing things, though. I heard my name being called several times while home alone. Hubby's a commercial fisherman. My son was either still in my belly or a newborn. I chalked it up to staring at my computer too long. I was doing online school. This progressed into hearing baby cries when my son was sound asleep or not even home. There have also been several instances where my husband started responding to me asking what I was calling his name for when I did not call his name. Around this time I started sleepwalking for the first time since I was 5. At this point I'm 27 or 28. We moved from that house and moved out to the neighborhood that had been built on a swamp. This is in Long, South Carolina, right outside of Myrtle Beach. In this house, everything had picked up significantly. I will state that since watching your videos, I feel like this is important, that this is Waccamaw, is that right? Native Preserve across the road from us. It is only part of it, but it's a good 100 or so acres of land that runs along the Waccamaw River. Where we live is surrounded by woods, not all the preserve, but also old farmland that family is letting sit or starting to sell to mega corporations for housing. Since being in this house, we have had another child. Neither of my children have ever said that they've seen or heard anything that's not there, thankfully. However, my sleepwalking has picked up tremendously. I'm waking up in different parts of the house at least 8 times a night. My daughter, my youngest, has had major issues sleeping here. It took almost 2 years to get her to sleep in her own room, and now she wakes up several times a night screaming. Now to the mimic part, though. My husband hears me call out to him all the time when I'm not. When I'm home alone, I can hear babies crying constantly, to the point that I make a joke to my best friend, the one from the first story, that I didn't have phantom kicks, I had phantom cries. I hear my name called constantly. I even hear my kids talking at night when they're fast asleep. I know that my son does laugh in his sleep sometimes. It really is creepy. But there are some nights that I wake up to one of them screaming my name to walk in and see them sleeping, which if either of them had screamed like that, they would not be sleeping when I got there. My son experienced night terrors since we moved into the house, and they're few and far between now, but almost nightly when we first moved in. I had this feeling that something is watching me all the time. I hate going outside at night. Taking my dog to the bathroom is one of the worst feelings ever. If my husband is home, I make him do it, but I cannot go near that back door or the window in my living room at night without having this massive feeling of dread wash over me. I normally chalk it up to past experiences and me being in my head 24/7 and freaking myself out. After seeing the stories about mimics on your page, though, I'm starting to wonder. I'm also not sure who the voice I hear is. It is a woman. My husband says it sounds like me who always calls him. Other than the times I hear my kids overnight, I have not heard anything other than the baby cries in the past few years. I'm not sure if this is a mimic or not because it is not as consistent as yours and does not seem to like some of the other ones that I have heard. Or do I have an attachment from my friend's house when we were teenagers? If you've read this and have any advice or anything to share, then please do. Thank you so much for taking your time and everything you do. So that to me does not sound like a mimic. I'm not picking up mimic vibes. I could definitely be wrong, but that does seem like an attachment. I would try a banishment if you're open with that, and then do a cleansing before and after you do it. Now, if that doesn't work, maybe a cord cutting ritual, but I think a banishment will take care of it. Luckily, mimics are not the only things that mimic. Mimics are very hard to get rid of, but attachments and things like that sometimes aren't, so that is good news. So I would start off with banishments and see if we can get rid of it that way. All right, next story. This story comes to you from Kansas. I'm really not sure what kind of story this is. Might be a mix of a lot of different things. Mimics, paranormal entities. I'm honestly a bit of a loss and would like some help or advice. For a good while, I had no issues in the place I'm living. I had some serious ups and downs throughout the years, but ultimately I managed to come out on top of it all and keep moving forward in life. During the serious downs, I was suffering depression to a point where I had tried to end my own life. Considering how dark this is, it's your choice whether to include it or not. I'm okay with it though. I had walked out onto a trail not far from my home and then off of it into the woods. Ever since then, that area has been one that carries a great negative energy whenever I'm near it. Jumping forward a little while later, I started to notice that there was clearly a problem at home. There was something non-human inside of my house, and eventually came to the conclusion that it came from a portal created by a mirror in my room facing my bed. It was a fully black humanoid figure with elongated limbs, and I saw it twice, once standing across from the hallway to my parents' doorway in broad daylight, and the second time it looked less human and more like a tree. It was at night, towering over my sleeping parents. It wasn't very tall, but I was horrified. That sparked something in me, and I started to learn about witchcraft and, more than anything else, protection. For a while after that, things calmed down and got better. My mom taught me some things about witchcraft that she had learned on her own back in high school and career, and got me supplies. Fast forwarding again to more recently, I began to struggle again, and my escape was to go out into that trail and off onto the trail and explore. I explored the off-trail area up and down and collected pennies and glass and other items. After that, I moved on to graffiti. I found this old concrete runoff tube that I used to hang out in with my ex-friend. I won't mention them too much, but they hate me with their entire being, I'm convinced. They intentionally managed to ruin my past romantic relationships and plotted to ruin my reputation to the people I was close with. I tagged that tunnel with 2 letters and a symbol. It became my safe space until I got run off of it one night. I had a rough evening and went to just sit and breathe. It wasn't dark out. I had been talking on the phone with my girlfriend while I was working on a tag when I heard a voice. It sounded near and far at the same time. I was a little shaken and considered leaving us to not get caught. I heard a few more voices, and I tried to ignore it and continue to speak with my girlfriend until I heard a blood-curdling scream. I was horrified, and my heart only dropped when my girlfriend asked me what that sound was. That meant it was real, and I needed to get home immediately. It was dark out now, and I was surprised, but I got up and started making my way back as my girlfriend tried to keep me calm over the phone. I haven't gone back and have had frequent nightmares, but lately it's gotten worse. I've had nightly nightmares until one night I cleansed my room with incense to protect it and felt safe once more. That night I had a dream that I got my dream motorbike and was driving it at night and having fun and feeling free and happy. I started wearing protection and carrying protection jars on me everywhere, and everything was fine for about a day. I think I angered something by trying to keep it out, but I've successfully kept my room safe. I had a nightmare the other night, but I'm starting to think it was some kind of sleep paralysis, which I'd never had before, or it was real. I was lying in my bed when I hear a low knocking on my bedroom door. I was completely still, and I heard my heart beating so hard I tried to quiet my heartbeat and breathe so it would leave. I spoke to my girlfriend about it the next morning, and she said that in the middle of the night I had been crying to her until she shushed me back to sleep. Love her for that. Since then, I've become seriously sick and fatigued, but today I became irrationally emotional. I went for a walk and came back and broke down to my mother over getting a birthday card. I don't know why I cried so hard, but I felt so heavy and upset, and the one nice thing that had got to me. I just cleansed my room again, and I'm still sick, but trying to get better. I feel as though after all of this, all of my negative energy has angered something or caused something to attach to me. Something makes me feel as though I'm not welcome in my own home, and I will not be pushed out or anything. I'm not sure what to do here now, but I would really appreciate advice. I can come up with photos of the tags if you'd like as well. They symbolize that I'm still here and I won't be scared away by an ex-friend or anyone else, and to leave my mark on the world somewhere so that even when I'm gone, a part of me will stay here for as long as those rocks are on Earth. Thank you for reading this story. I know it's a long one, but wow, a lot has happened, and I'm not entirely sure how to approach all of this. Okay, so I think a banishment is in need here. You definitely have an attachment. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, but I would start with banishments and cleansings and then see what's still happening after that and see what you need to do after that. But please keep me updated on if those work and let me know. I'm glad the protection's helping, but I think banishments will help so much. Anyway, that is all for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me every day this month. I had a blast, and I'll see you tomorrow. Regardless of whether or not it's reading your stories, I will see you tomorrow.